Hi there, and welcome back to the Energy Sector Heroes podcast. My name is Michelle Fraser, and every week I will speak with incredible people who share their lessons, experiences, and stories from their time spent in the energy sector. Hi there, and welcome back again to this week's episode. If you're new to the show, please take a second to subscribe and even consider sharing the show with just one other person. This week I am joined by Shota Lemondzhava, which is quite a cool name actually. Shota is the head of Government Relations World Energy Council. Shota, would you like to introduce yourself, please?
Yes, Michelle, thank you for having me. So, indeed, you nailed my name. That's perfect. Shota Lemondzhava. I'm originally from St. Petersburg, Russia, though ethnically I'm Georgian, which I would like to say gives me a bit of a cross-cultural perspective. That's been useful throughout my career. My background is international relations and political science, which may not sound like the most direct route into the energy sector, but in reality, energy is, as you know, is deeply geopolitical, so it actually fits quite naturally. Before joining the World Energy Council, I worked for several years in the events, most notably with Congress Foundation, a Russian entity where I led engagement with official delegations at large-scale international forums. So it gave me hands-on experience working with governments, navigating protocol, and understanding how high-level relationships are built and how they are sustained. And then in 2020, I joined the council, the World Energy Council, initially to support with the World Energy Congress. That was meant to happen in St. Petersburg, but then the world changed, and still I stayed because I believe in the mission of the World Energy Council. And here I am. Today I lead our government and institutional engagement, essentially making sure that the council remains the leading, trusted, neutral platform for energy dialogue across borders.
Okay, so how did you get started off in the energy sector then?
So that would be not in the energy sector. That would be diplomacy. That would be government relations. And then, those things are very much interconnected, politics and energy. So that was a very natural fit. It was not specifically energy that I had in mind when I was when I was starting off, and I sort of evolved into it.
Okay, so what made you join the World Energy Council then?
So that was a mix of timing, but also values and probably a sense of purpose. So, as I mentioned at that time, I had just come off several years working in international, mostly focused on high-level forums, and then I wanted to move into something that felt more, maybe I'd say, future-oriented, something where I could contribute to global dialogue and an impact. And the council stood out, well, first of all, because there was a connecting point with the potential Congress in St. Petersburg that was supposed to be held in 2022, but also because the council has its unique role in the energy space. It's not an advocacy group or a political platform. It's neutral, trusted space where governments, companies, experts, communities come together to have real conversations about the future of energy. And we at the council put humans at that center of that conversation. So it's very human centric, and that was really important to me. And maybe just to add, I always believed in the power of convening the right people in the right setting. And the council has 100 years legacy and its ability to bring together ministers, CEOs, innovators, young energy leaders. It just felt like the perfect place to do just that. So in so many ways, joining the council felt less like a career move and more like finding the right mission, I'd say.
Okay, so that sounds interesting. So, are you involved in the energy transition that the UK is currently going through?
As the organization, yeah, as personally, indeed, but slightly different way than, say, an engineer or a project developer might. So my role at the council focuses on government and institutional engagement, which means I work on the strategic side of those energy transitions. I help ensure that ministers, policymakers, global institutions are meaningfully involved in the council's work. whether that's through events or our regional initiatives or our insights like the World Energy Trilemma or Issues Monitor. So while I'm not on the ground, building, say, wind farms or writing legislation, I'm very much involved in shaping the conversation and the connections that make those conversation happen and those things ultimately possible. Yeah, so energy transition isn't just a technical process. It's also social. It's also political, economic, and the council's role is to create that kind of open, inclusive dialogue that helps leaders make better, more joined up decisions. So in that sense, yes, I work in energy transitions every day, but just from a global convening and policy engagement angle.
So you were mentioning how you worked in policies in the energy transition. It's quite important all over the world, but it's quite important for the UK as well. What policies are coming up?
So globally, of course, there's, as we said, lots of things are happening in energy policy right now. We're seeing a significant shift as countries implement the new strategies to accelerate the transition. There's a massive growth in clean energy investment. There's a global green subsidy race. There's nuclear energy resurgence. AI is, everywhere. Everyone is talking about AI. So the UK is actively advancing its transition through a combination of initiatives, a lot of infrastructure investments happening, also policy reforms. There's a Great British Energy that is a publicly owned company, headquartered in Aberdeen, actually, with a mandate to accelerate the development of clean and domestically produced energy. There's obviously the Act of 2023 that is also a legislation that provides the framework for those aspects of energy sector. There's offshore wind expansion with the aim to expand offshore wind capacity to 50 gigawatts by 2030. Yeah, energy bill reform. So, 46% higher energy bills in the UK. They are now currently than a global average. So obviously lots of proposals that include shifting levy costs from electricity to gas bills to encourage cleaner heating options. And then all kind of international commitments and international trade considerations like carbon adjustment mechanisms, EU carbon tax alignment, and stuff like that. And the energy security is still quite a big topic. Despite the efforts to reduce fossil fuel reliance, the UK continues to depend on natural gas, and this underscores the importance of balancing energy security with decarbonization goals. Still relevant.
Uh-huh. Okay, so that sounds amazing. Do you think that we're going to, or do you think anybody's going to reach their net zero target?
That's a good question. I think we're on track. Are we on track? Actually, I think that's a question. So we're making progress, but it's obviously not fast enough. Many countries have set those ambitious, and those are very different. And some countries are making real strides in areas like renewables, in electric vehicles, and even in energy storage. But there are still gaps. Infrastructure isn't keeping up. There are grid constraints. There are delays with permits, supply chain bottlenecks, and those are real barriers. And we also face tough challenges around affordability and then social equity. That's the aspect that the World Energy Council is also very much looking at. So for many communities, the transition it still feels sort of top down, expensive, maybe out of reach. So I would say net zero is not just a technical destination. In many cases, it's a mindset shift. It's about reimagining the way we live, our daily lives, how we produce energy, how we consume energy. And while the global pace is uneven, the direction is increasingly clear. So we can reach the net zero, but if we move from ambition to accelerated action. But again, things like AI now pose even more challenges.
Okay, why does AI pose more challenges now then?
Super consumptions, right? I don't know if you've seen some of the recent interviews circulating on the platforms like Instagram and TikTok about the potential for AI to draw globally consumption to like 99%, going of energy consumption going into AI. So there's this demand of AI itself, the training of those large language models, running those data centers, powering, of course, all of this is cloud computing, right? So all of that requires enormous amounts of electricity. And as AI becomes more embedded in everything from, talking about energy from like industrial operations to household devices, ChatGPT currently, I think it's in the top three most downloaded apps on this iPhone App Store. That demand will only grow. So if that power isn't coming from clean sources, it risks adding pressure to emission goals. Then there's data, sheer data, there's a lot of it. Energy systems are incredibly complex and fragmented in many parts of the world. Data is either siloed, unreliable, or not even collected. And without high quality data, the full potential of AI to optimize grids, to forecast demand, specifically if you're talking about energy, or to streamline operations is quite limited. And then there's also the human side of that transition. AI can prove to be quite a disruptive force. It can disrupt jobs, especially in operational or in administrative jobs. And that creates transitional challenges, with upskilling people to work alongside those system instead of like being displaced or replaced by them. And then, of course, there's a lot of governance issues as well. Who owns that data? Who decides how those algorithms are used, especially in critical infrastructure? How do we prevent bias or unintended consequences when those decisions are made by AI, especially in high stakes environments? So yeah, there's a massive potential from that, starting from smart grids to predictive maintenance. But like any tool, it needs to have right guardrails, it needs governance, and most importantly, I think at this stage, it needs global cooperation to be transformative, but in a positive way.
Okay, because I think a lot of people are jumping on the bandwagon for AI, how it's going to be the future. Do you think it's going to be a good addition to the energy sector?
It's certainly gonna. It also depends on the application. As I said, it has a great potential in things like smart grids or predictive maintenance, but it's I think it's a pretty complex issue today to be able to. Well, think about the complexity of today's energy systems. So we have renewables, we have aging infrastructure, we have demand shift, we have a pressure to decarbonize. All of that is happening at once. So can AI help make sense of that complexity? It probably can optimize, as we said, optimize grid operations in real time, and that helps balance supply and demand more efficiently. The predictive maintenance also mentioned, great for critical infrastructure before things break. Energy forecasting, especially for renewables like wind and solar, very useful. Smarter consumer level decisions, also a very important angle of like when to charge your EV or even when to run your washing machine, right? Also very energy consuming. So from a technical standpoint, it is probably already adding value, and that is probably only going to grow. But AI needs to be implemented also with intention. It's not just about automating decisions, but it's about ensuring that the benefits are shared. And again, that brings us back to the need for good data, for ethical use, for transparency, and ensuring that human workforce isn't left behind in this process.
Okay, but then I've spoken to a couple of other colleagues, and they were saying that there is some companies that are starting to maybe want to start implementing AI to run maybe a whole plant. Do you think that's even viable or even safe?
to run whole plants.
Yeah.
Same questions. How the safety is a major question. So automating everything from predictive maintenance to supply chains in terms of logistics and actually even safety monitoring itself. The goal is obviously to improve efficiency, to reduce downtime, make those operations smarter, more resilient. And indeed, AI can probably process more variables, faster, more accurately than human ever could. But it also raises those important questions. And indeed, in some pilot projects, companies are reporting significant savings and performance improvements. But then it raises those questions. How do we inside that human oversight remains strong? And mind, it's a very quickly moving space, right? This whole AI development. Something unexpected occurs that the algorithm wasn't trained for. Situations probably can also arise. And then the skills, are workers being retrained to understand and manage these new systems, or do we leave them out of the loop? And this is where the idea of a just and inclusive energy transition really matters. Full automation might look great, it might look really good on a balance sheet, but if it leads to job displacement or if it creates risks for critical infrastructure, it could obviously backfire. So while I think the move towards AI run plants is quite promising, it needs to be paired with strong governance, with the probably biggest challenge, robust cybersecurity,
Yes.
and then workforce upskilling. And again, a sort of a clear understanding where human judgment is still applicable and still matters most. So in short, yes, AI can run the plant, but we still need people to lead the system.
Yeah, I agree as well. And that brings me nicely into the next question that I was going to ask you. It was about cybersecurity. Do you think that cybersecurity is just going to get more crucial? Not even
Yeah,
just
absolutely.
not even just in the energy sector, but worldwide and every area of business.
Absolutely. Of course, especially because of development of AI, cybersecurity is becoming not just crucial, but foundational to to the energy sector, of course, as well, especially as we integrate those technologies. Probably a top priority now. And with the energy sector, it's embracing digitalization. The systems are interconnected to enhance efficiency, sustainability, but this digital shift also expands I would call it the attack surface for cyber threats. And critical components like smart grids, the renewable energy sources, AI-driven control systems they can be increasingly vulnerable and are probably targeted by cyber criminals. So it seems to be a double-edged sword, right? So while it offers AI and digitalization offer substantial benefits in optimizing those operations, they also introduce those vulnerabilities as they can be exploited, manipulated, services disrupted. We have recently witnessed a pretty big one in Western Europe. So they can obviously cause even physical damage to infrastructure. So reliance on I think, will increase the complexity of cybersecurity that will require more sophisticated defense mechanisms and some sort of regulation. So recognizing these challenges, governments they are already implementing stricter cybersecurity regulation. In the UK, there's a cybersecurity and resilience bill that aims to enhance the country's cyber defense, particularly for critical infrastructure. Very similar in the EU, there's NIS2 directive that also seeks to bring together those cybersecurity measures across member states to protect those essential services. So collaborative efforts are essential in addressing those cybersecurity questions. It isn't a sole responsibility of an individual or a company. It requires really a collaborative approach from governments, private sector, from all kind of stakeholders and international bodies.
Okay. So it's like you were saying before, it is quite a double-edged sword. with the cybersecurity and the AI, because even though that the AI is going to make everything more efficient, and it is making everything more efficient all over the world, but you're still going to have an increased maybe cybersecurity attacks.
Yes, yes, certainly. While the vulnerability factor and the number of threats and then potential actual cyber attacks will almost certainly increase, there's going to be more, I think, what they call entry points in every control system, the AI platform, that's a potential vulnerability. Then, and energy infrastructure always is a high value target, right? It's not just about stealing data. It's about disrupting the whole power grid so that can have a real world immediate impact on society, on national security. And those attacks are likely not going to be random. Those are going to be strategic. And I think we're seeing a lot of activity from, I'd say, state-linked actors, how to put it diplomatically, testing resilience of critical systems, especially during that time of geopolitical tension. So cybersecurity is not going to be just an IT issue anymore. It's basically a core resilience issue for the world, for the energy transition, and even with stronger policies, even with smarter tech, attacks are, probably still going to be happening, and the real shift needs to happen in how we prepare and how we respond. So we need to have some sort of systems with security in mind from day one, right? Not as an afterthought. We need to somehow practice real world scenarios, some sort of drills like recovery drills. Absolutely important to be sharing intel, that threat intel across borders and sectors. This is why international cooperation is so detrimental actually in all questions, in everything energy, in everything geopolitics. And then again, skills, we always come back to skills. We need to make sure that human teams are trained. They're not just tech driven. So yeah, I think the key is building systems that don't just avoid failure, but that they fail safely and recover quickly. I think that's a good definition of energy security in my book.
Yeah, fail safely, recover quickly. And I really like that. I have to say, I really like that philosophy as well. But is that really likely going to be achievable? I mean, it might well be achievable one day, but are we anywhere near that?
I think that's a question that everyone is asking. And the honest answer is yes, it is achievable, but if only if we stay realistic, only if we stay, again, collaborative and proactive. So reaching net zero, securing digital infrastructure, and transforming global energy systems and all at once is incredibly ambitious, right?
Mhm.
But the ambition is actually not the problem. The real challenge is execution at scale and speed while managing costs, politics, public trust, while doing all of that along the way. So technically, we have or will have the technologies we need, like renewables, storage, smart grids, but they are not perfect. They are evolving fast. Many are deployable at scale. Economically, the cost keeps falling, but we need sort of smarter investment and long-term thinking, less reaction, more planning. But socially and politically is where it gets trickier. We need to make sure that transitions are inclusive, that people don't feel left out or burdened by the costs. So yeah, I think cybersecurity and energy transitions, it's achievable. Yeah, if we stop treating the transition as pretty technical challenge and start treating like a human one, because that's what it really is.
Yeah, I think so too. I think so too. So, do you actually have any advice for any graduates coming into the energy sector, maybe wanting to work in cybersecurity or governance?
Yeah, sure. It's a very, very good and close question that is close to my heart. the energy sector really needs new minds and really needs fresh perspectives more than ever. So if I needed to advise a young graduate stepping into the field, I'd probably say be curious, stay flexible. It's very important, flexibility. The energy world is changing really fast. Roles that didn't exist 5 years ago, like hydrogen system designers, like carbon data and analysts, those are now emerging as crucial. Cybersecurity, again. So don't lock yourself into one narrow path too early. Maybe learn broadly, explore different parts of the sector, stay open to where your skills can make the most impact, get involved in the conversation. And this is what the World Energy Council is, I want to say all about, but not all about, but it's a very important part of our work, because again, energy isn't just about engineering or policy. It's about people. So joining communities, including like the World Energy Council's Future Energy Leaders program, is a very good idea. Attend events, start building your network, start doing it early. I think, you'll be amazed by how much you can learn just by listening, and then how much your voice can add to that conversation as well. The sector is no longer just about generation and consumption. There are values that can be brought to the table. It's now, it's about climate. It's been for a while about climate. It's all about justice, technology, as we've discussed, and global cooperation, which is more on my part of work. So if you care about inclusion, if you care about sustainability, innovation, bring that into your work. The sector needs not just what you know, but also what your values are, what you stand for. Don't fear complexity. Energy is full of competing priorities, affordability, sustainability, reliability. That's normal. What makes someone stand out is the ability to think across disciplines, across those priorities, ability to bring people together around solutions, not just answers. And then, maybe a very banal patience, persistence. The energy transitions is a long game. You won't change the system in a day. There's no one size fit all solution. But every project, every relationship that those graduates built, every smart question is part of something bigger. And that mindset makes all the difference. And this is why it's such a pleasure to see so many bright young minds joining that conversation. So ultimately, my advice is get stuck in, ask questions, stay humble, but know you belong here, because the future of energy isn't just being built in boardrooms or even in control centers. It's being shaped by the next generation, and that's what those young people are.
And that is excellent advice. And I was going to ask you, how would you get involved in the conversation for our younger audience?
So joining those communities, such as the World Energy Leaders, World Energy Council's Future Energy Leader Program, FL100 program, what we call, it's a global, diverse community designed to give young professionals a real voice, not just observe from the sidelines. Then, of course, online, don't underestimate the power of sharing perspective. We're both on LinkedIn, writing LinkedIn posts, blogs about what you're learning. That is already a contribution to the conversation. And I think on those platforms, thoughtful, curious voices, they do get noticed. So you don't need to be an expert. Just be, as they say these days, just be real and be willing to engage. There's plenty of events happening, conferences. We organize a lot. We're working on our upcoming meeting convening is in Panama in October 2025, World Energy Week. Then Congress, that is a biennial event. the next one taking place in Riyadh in October 2026. The events like this, congresses, conferences, webinars, even student-led panels, these are all great places to share, to learn, to make your voice heard, and then volunteering on all kind of projects. There are student energy societies, there are youth climate groups, there's plenty of local initiatives, working on clean energy or community projects, also very interesting. So experience doesn't always come from a paid role. They can come from rolling up your sleeves and contributing to something real. And just the good old reaching out to people who are already in the industry, whose work inspires you. Most professionals, they want to help. At least I would want to think that they will want to help, especially if you're thoughtful in your approach. Always very interesting to be receiving, what learning with others sort of coming up behind you. It builds confidence. And stay informed, probably. Yeah. Being subscribed to all kind of newsletters, listening to podcasts like this one, trying to stay aware of the big shifts where they are. And it's not necessary to know everything to participate. Just stay curious and engaged. I think that's really about it. It's about showing up with ideas, with questions, with willingness to listen. And that's how you start shaping the conversation instead of waiting to be invited into it.
I agree, actually. I do agree. Start small. You don't know who's going to be looking at your blog.
Exactly. Every big journey starts with a small step, right?
Yeah, I think so too, actually. So I'm going to wrap things up. That's all the questions I have today. I would like to thank Shota for your time. That brings us to the end of another episode. Thanks for listening and see you next week. That brings us to the end of another episode. Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed the show, I'd like to gently encourage you to leave a 5-star rating wherever you listen to podcasts and share the show with another person. You can also follow me on LinkedIn or via my website, www.michellefraserconsultancy.com. Thanks again for listening and see you next week.